talk about Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Right now, this team is 2-8. This is terrible. This is one of the worst situations in the NFL when you talk about the coaching staff and the lack of adjustments on the defensive end. For context, at this point of last season, the Jacksonville Jaguars were the number 1 seed in the AFC. They were 8-3. Let me repeat that again. They were 8-3. And I remember they went against the Cincinnati Bengals Monday Night Football game. Trevor Lawrence hurts his ankle, and everything from that point on was a tailspin. The season unraveled right in front of their eyes. They dealt with a lot of injuries, but they wanted to bring back Doug Peterson, and rightfully so. The team was 8-3 when they were fully healthy. They were engaged. They looked like how the team looked the year before when they made the NFL playoffs and they beat the Los Angeles Chargers in that playoff game. But I look at the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. We're far removed from that. They have to go out there and fire Doug Peterson after this season and bring in yet another head coach. This will be Trevor Lawrence's 3rd head coach in his career if they decide to move on from Doug Peterson. Because his rookie season, they hired Urban Meyer, who was completely terrible, one of the worst coaches in NFL history. You look at Doug Peterson. This is a man that has won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. He does a lot of good things here and there, but it's not consistent, and he stands in his own way. I feel like the system that he has right now does not really play to Trevor Lawrence's strengths and doesn't play to the offensive line strengths either. This offensive line is still a major issue, and it's part of the reason to why Trevor Lawrence is missing time right now, dealing with a shoulder injury. And I do want to start off with Trevor Lawrence. Even though Trevor Lawrence has went out there and played well in a few games, I look at the Miami Dolphins game in particular. He went out there, had a very good game. It came down to a fumble by Etienne in the red zone by Travis Etienne. The Dolphins turned that into a major touchdown to Tyreek Hill, and they lose that game in close fashion. Trevor Lawrence was not the reason why they lost that football game. It's easy to go out there and say if he just scored a couple of more points. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, there's only so much that Trevor Lawrence can do on the field. And he was 12 of 21, 162 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. Did he miss throws in that game? Yes. But he had a major touchdown, and he got hit right in the back of his head because his tackle play has been terrible all season long. I look at the next game against the Cleveland Browns. He was 14-30, 220 passing yards, 0 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He got sacked 4 times, and he was pressured on majority of his throws. It was a legal shift in this game, and it moved them back in the goal line situation. They were close in this game as well. So they started the season off being 0-2. Against the Buffalo Bills, they got blitzed. This was a Monday Night Football game. They lost 47-10. Trevor Lawrence was 21-38, 178 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown to 1 interception. He got sacked 4 times yet again. This was a bad game for Trevor Lawrence because he threw a dumb interception and he was missing targets all day. But at the same time, he doesn't have that much time inside the pocket, and Doug Peterson is calling deep shots down the field. And majority of these numbers came in garbage time against the Buffalo Bills. But you look at what happened a week after that against the Houston Texans. A bunch of miscues on defense, a bunch of miscues on special teams as well. At the same time, Trevor Lawrence has went out there, he's missed throws, and he has been careless with the football as well. It's okay to admit that. Even though this is not his fault because the front office has let him down and coaching has let him down as well, I believe in equal blame. It's not like Trevor Lawrence is going out there and he's playing like Kyler Murray right now, like how he's playing. He's not playing like Lamar Jackson, and it's okay to admit that. With the expectation that Trevor Lawrence had coming out of college, he was supposed to be a franchise savior, and I understand that's unfair. This is a team game, but you look at what other teams do when they get a franchise quarterback. They go out there and they turn the team completely around. He hasn't been able to do that. I understand they won a playoff game a couple of years ago against the Chargers. But Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be a top 5 to top 10 quarterback right now. He doesn't look like that on the field. He's not a bad quarterback at all, and coaching could be hurting him. But at the same time, Trevor Lawrence has been a disappointment with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's okay to admit that. I feel like a lot of Jaguar fans try to place blame on the defense and on the coaching staff, and rightfully so. But Trevor Lawrence deserves a lot of blame as well. In that Buffalo Bills game, it was an open wide receiver, and he completely misses him, and he throws an interception. That's not on Doug Peterson. That's not on the offensive line. That's on Trevor Lawrence. He has to play better moving forward. And in the past, he's had a problem with turning the football over. This season, 11 passing touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. It's not bad on the surface, but at the same time, you would like to see those touchdown numbers be up. You would like to see the numbers be higher as well. This kid he has been placed into a tough situation. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not going to come on here and just make a whole bunch of excuses for Trevor Lawrence. He has to play better. And before you say, hey, this team has had a lot of drops this season, they have. they have had the 11th most drops in the NFL with 16. But you know who else has dealt with a lot of drops this season? The Buffalo Bills, 18. The Los Angeles Chargers, 18 drops. The Green Bay Packers, 23 drops. And I understand their defensive play is better, but those quarterbacks, they can overcome that adversity. Those teams can overcome that adversity. It's not all on Trevor Lawrence, but he deserves some blame. When I look at the backfield this season, Tank Bigsby has been a better running back than Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is not a bad running back, and I felt like they should have traded him at the trade deadline. Tank Bigsby has more explosiveness to his game, and it seems like he runs harder than a guy like Travis Etienne. Maybe they move off of him in the offseason, but you could have got something for Travis Etienne for sure. At least get you a couple of draft picks and move on from him, because you have Tank Bigsby and you can go out there and draft you another running back as well. I understand that he is close friends with Trevor Lawrence. They both went to Clemson together and they played together, but at the same time, they could have moved on from him. Just my opinion. When I look at the wide receivers, like I mentioned, the drops before, Brian Thomas Jr. is a true number one from LSU. He's going to be the best wide receiver in this wide receiving room for years to come. Christian Kirk, he can't stay healthy. He dealt with injuries last season. You put him into that conversation with everything that went wrong last season, and he's going to miss the rest of this season dealing with a broken collarbone injury. So when I look at Christian Kirk, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. And when he's been on the field, he's been a solid wide receiver, but he is highly overpaid. When I look at a guy like Christian Kirk, he is getting paid a lot of money to be a true number one wide receiver. He's not a true number one. I understand in his first year with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he had over 1,000 yards receiving, but he's not a true number one. Very good number two, very good guy inside the slot. He does a lot of good things for you, but in terms of going out there and being a game wrecker, he's not that guy. Brian Thomas Jr. is. When I look at Gabe Davis, it is what it is with Gabe Davis. He had a lot of good moments with the Buffalo Bills, a lot of bad moments as well. He will have drops that make you just want to scream at the TV. He is that type of football player. And then the next play, he'll make a miraculous catch across the middle of the field. He's an inconsistent wide receiver, but at the same time, when you get him focused and you get him going, he can be very good. That's part of the reason why the Buffalo Bills were like, you know what? You can walk on in free agency, because he was a guy consistent at times. But when he is not consistent, it's bad because he would have costly drops. Look at the Chicago Bears game. He had not one, but two drops in the red zone that would have went for touchdowns. Those are possibly 14 points that you left on the board against the Chicago Bears. And that's not on Trevor Lawrence. That's on Gabe Davis. You have to come down with the football. When I look at Evan Ingram, a very good tight end, he has had a career resurgence. Now this season, he hasn't looked this good, and he has dealt with some injuries as well. But last season, he was phenomenal. In that first year with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he was one of the best receiving tight ends in the NFL. Same with last season. This was a man with the New York Giants. He could not catch the football. I look at him right now, and you place him into the right situation with the right coaching, he is a literal game wrecker at the tight end spot, because he's basically a wide receiver posing as a tight end. He has the height, the strength, the size, and the speed to go out there and wreck safeties and cornerbacks and linebackers all in the same. When I look at the offensive line, they need a lot of work here. Brandon Scherff seems like he's on the back end of his career. The same with Mitch Morse. Those two guys are not just playing completely horrible, but at the same time, they're not going to be here for the next 4 to 5 years. Brandon Scherff, you got him in free agency many years ago. He was solid in the beginning. Now you're starting to see some ugly sides of him. Mitch Morse, the Buffalo Bills, they released him. You bring him over because you wanted to bring in more of an offensive line presence, and rightfully so. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked out. And we've seen Mac Jones do a lot of pressure, and the same with Trevor Lawrence as well. They need to bring in some brand new offensive linemen and possibly another wide receiver as well. When I look at the defense, this is easily the worst unit with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not even their front seven. Because you look at Trayvon Walker this season, he has 7.5 sacks. Very good player. He was worthy of that first overall pick. I know a lot of people talk about Aiden Hutchinson, but you get into basically a scheme fit type of situation in there. Aiden Hutchinson is a better pass rusher than Trayvon Walker, but let's not disrespect Trayvon Walker. He's an elite run stopper, and he's a very good pass rusher in his own right. He's not a bust by any stretch of the imagination. I look at Josh Allen. Last season, phenomenal pass rusher. This season, he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been the same pass rusher that he was last season. Part of that is because he was in the contract year, and you could tell on the field. From last season, he had more intensity in his game. This season, not as much. Their rushing defense is not as bad as their passing defense. Their passing defense is one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. Tyson Campbell has not been able to stay healthy. Last season, he dealt with injuries, but he played through it. He has missed some time this season as well. The one thing with Tyson Campbell, when he's on the field and he's fully healthy, he's a rock star. That's why they gave him a 3-year deal. He's a very good cornerback. He's a true number one. The problem is this. He can rarely stay healthy. He's dealing with an injury right now. I look at the safeties. These are not bad safeties in terms of run stopping, but in terms of going out there and stopping the pass, they're terrible. I look at a guy like Andre Cisco. He's not going to go out there and be a constant guy on the back end and just constantly go out there and make interceptions over and over again like a guy like Xavier McKinney. He's not going to constantly go out there and make a play on the football. Not a horrible safety, but not the ideal safety to have with this defense and this defensive scheme, which is terrible, by the way, because majority of the time they're leaving their cornerbacks in one-on-one situations. There's a lack of adjustments at halftime with this defensive coordinator. And part of the reason why Doug Peterson deserves to be fired, he brought in a defensive coordinator from last season. They moved on from him. You bring in this defensive coordinator. You can't go out there and you can't figure out defense. And Press Taylor has not been a good offensive play caller. The only reason why he has this job is because he is close friends with Doug Peterson. That is it. Press Taylor is a terrible offensive coordinator in multiple situations. And Doug Peterson goes out there, and when he has control of plays, it doesn't look good either. Because like how he said against the Philadelphia Eagles, you didn't have Brian Thomas Jr. as your number one target in that situation. You have Trevor Lawrence throwing it to the third wide receiver, and it goes for an interception. Why are you not targeting your best players in the red zone? And that was a close game against the Eagles, by the way, even though they went out there and did a lot of dumb things with their coaching staff. I look at Doug Peterson. He's way behind his prime. It seems like he's an outdated head coach, and it's time to move on from him. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars have a lot of good young players because I look at Trevor Lawrence. There's still something there. It's the reason why you pay Trevor Lawrence a lot of money. And I don't think that he's a bad quarterback. He's not a top 5. Depending on who you talk to, he's not a top 10 quarterback either. When I look at the wide receivers, Brian Thomas Jr. is very good. Gabe Davis, it is what it is. If he could just go out there and catch the football just a little bit more, he could be a better wide receiver. Christian Kirk, solid wide receiver to have. It's not the best wide receiving core for a quarterback, by the way. But when you think of a franchise quarterback, you will hope that they can go out there and elevate the talent around them. You have Evan Ingram, phenomenal player. And you can make the argument that Trevor Lawrence has went out there and basically elevated Evan Ingram to the next level because he never looked this good until he came over to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the same with Christian Kirk as well. So I would give you that. Better offensive line play, better head coaching. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars can turn this ship around. It's just not all doom and gloom long term because you do have those young players. This is a young football team. In my opinion, they're just so disappointing because they're supposed to be sitting at the top of the AFC right now with the talent that they have. And unfortunately, they're not sitting at the top of the AFC. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. And they're one of the first teams. Matter of fact, they're the first franchise in NFL history to have back-to-back first overall picks with Trevor Lawrence, then Trayvon Walker the next year. That is how bad this team has been in the front office. And it comes down to ownership. I don't know if Trent Baalke will go out there and still have a job after this season. He's done some good things. He's done some bad things as well. I think that you clean house. You get everyone out of there. I wish the Khan family could sell this team. Honestly. I wish that they could go out there and just remove themselves from this situation. Because you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, historically, even though they're one of the younger teams and they're one of the younger franchises in NFL history, they're an expansion team, they have not been good consistently. Many years ago, they had a great defense with Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Boye, all those guys. They had a phenomenal defense. They could not figure out the quarterback situation. I wish that Trevor Lawrence was placed in that situation with that defense and that offense. They would have easily won a Super Bowl with Trevor Lawrence, by the way. But you stuck with Blake Bortles. Decisions like that. And I understand different general managers now, different guys around. At the end of the day, it's the same family that's running the show. And unfortunately, it's not a fun show to watch. I feel bad for Jacksonville Jaguar fans, and this team could possibly have the first overall pick yet again because you see Mac Jones. He is terrible. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense went out there and they played a great game against Sam Darnold and crew. They forced him to throw 3 interceptions. And what did Mac Jones do? He came into the game and he threw 2 interceptions for only 139 passing yards. It's the reason why the Patriots moved off of him. He can't push the football in the red zone, and he's a terrible quarterback. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence will play again this season. There's a strong chance that he will because it's just a minor shoulder injury, but he's going to miss back-to-back games. But let me know in the comment section below, what should the Jacksonville Jaguars do after this season? And how do you feel about Trevor Lawrence moving forward? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless. Peace.